I'm really excited about this project. It's been a long time coming, but I finally carved out enough time in the shop to do my 227 build. So I've got a Consew 227 R2 that's going to go on this really nice mobile table from Prizzi. But maybe the most exciting part of all is going to be the KineDyne servo motor on it. It's got some special features. Let's check it out. This is the HM-750SL from Neels Saddlery and Harness. And I already have one of these operating in the shop and I was so impressed by it, I wanted to get another. And the main benefit on this one is that it maintains full torque at low RPM, so it's just like having a speed reducer on without the hassle of that extra install. So now I've already done a full installation video on the KineDyne HM-750SL, so I'll drop that down in the description box if you want to check it out for yourself. But what I'd like to reiterate today is the fact that there's a motor, a switch, and then a separate controller box. And on this switch in particular, there's a couple different ways to mount that. So the 750 watt motor will be oriented like this under the table. It's got that nice small 45 millimeter pulley right from the factory, so I like that for slow speed control. You don't have to swap anything out. But as far as this switch, you can mount it directly to the table with wood screws from underneath, so long as that layout matches where your foot pedal needs to go. For me, that's always a little bit too long, and so what I found myself doing is just drilling out these two holes and sharing the bolt holes for those carriage bolts that would normally mount your motor. I like to get it close to the motor but not covering the fan vents there. I want to keep that open for good circulation, so if I mount it about like that with the same bolts, that seems to work just about right. I usually just run the drill in reverse so it doesn't get grabby on the metal and just punch it out to about 5/16. Done. And that'll let me use those standard carriage bolts to mount the switch right where I need it. A 35 millimeter hole will allow me to run the wire for the needle position sensor. Just remember to lay out all the equipment that you plan to use so nothing interferes, including the location of the metal leg set below the table. And I like to add a little plastic grommet as well, and I just cut a slot in that so it's a little bit easier to fit, and that does a nice job of dressing things up. We'll get that big beautiful 227 R2 into position, get that secured. I just love a good cylinder arm. This is just going to be such a great setup for me, having all the capabilities of a cylinder arm machine, and on this Prizzi mobile table it'll let me just roll it anywhere in the shop, so that's a great help for me. But let's talk about the final detail, installing that needle position sensor on this KineDyne servo. Now I've left the belt guard off the machine so you can see how everything looks, but this is the needle position sensor with its little cover removed, and we'll even pull that off to have a better look at it. Your hand wheel needs to have a hub to attach this sensor. Now my Consew 227 R2 comes with that, but if your machine doesn't, the KineDyne servo actually comes with a hub and screw, so you're all set with that. Then you just need to mount this bracket. I had to shorten mine slightly, and I chose this hole kind of in between the opening for the belt. There's another good option here, but whatever happens to work on your machine. And then this rod just needs to sit in this groove, and that just keeps it from spinning. That's the main requirement there, and then we'll go over how to dial that in. The easiest way I've found to set this one is to roll the hand wheel until the take-up arm is at the very top position. Once you see it doing that little dance where you know you're right at the top, that's the best position. Then you want to identify the little red tick mark on the photo sensor plate, and there's also just inside of that there's an N inscribed on the sensor. And what you need to do is hold the hand wheel steady as you rotate the sensor around until that red tick mark just aligns with the N. So I realize that may be a little bit hard to see, but from my vantage that's lined up well right there. Now there's 3 screws that normally secure that to the hub. We're just going to tighten one of them so we can test the machine. I like to tighten that one that's easily accessible. Okay, let's test it out. You can sew nice and slow, and regardless of where I take my foot off the pedal, it'll stop in the needle down position time and time again. It does so nice and slowly, and if I just heel tap, it'll raise it to the top position so I can release my threads. course, you have to turn on the needle position sensor from the controller. The factory default is to have it off. So to set that, we'll just press and hold the P and simultaneously hit OK. That'll get us into the programming menu. Use the plus button to scroll up to setting number 26. Now, once you're on 26, go ahead and hit the program button again. And mine is on because it's 1, but yours may look like this from the factory. And 0 means the needle position sensor is off from the controller, even if you have one installed. So make sure to scroll that up until it says 1, and then just hit OK. And once you're back into that menu, you know the setting has gone through. Now let's say after you complete your settings that the needle actually stops in the top position, and what you were going for is in the bottom position. There's a quick button on the controller to fix that. It's just this button here with the needle up, needle down icon. So just hit that and you're all set. And if your machine stops right where you want it to, just go ahead and tighten up the other 2 screws. It's really helpful to have a 3mm Allen wrench, especially one with a ball end, because you can't go exactly straight in. It needs to be a couple degrees off of straight, so that ball end tip really helps. And then just reinstall your cover on the sensor and you're good to go. Then your everyday adjustment is the speed, and I usually run mine about 700 RPM. That gives me really good slow speed control, but doesn't sacrifice anything on the top end, so that's where I'm comfortable. Unless I'm winding a bobbin, sometimes I might just speed it up a little bit for convenience. Okay, so I put my speed back to 700 after winding a bobbin, and you can see just how slow you can go. Plenty of torque, really good punching power with this motor, so no problem at all with the slow speed control. And if you want to just hum along like a normal sewing machine, you can do that too when you're at that 700. Again, it'll always stop in the down position, and heel tap it to raise it up, foot lift, and you're easily going to release that material. Well, I'm happy I have this one set up with all my favorite accessories, so let's see what it can do. Despite being a really heavy machine, that rolls super easy on that Prizzi leg set. And once you have it where you want, the casters lock easily into position, and you know that controls both rotation as well as pivoting, so it gives you a nice sturdy workstation. Prizzi Sewing also makes custom tops, so if you need something special, they can build you just about anything you need. I had them make me a short tabletop for a skiving machine that's worked out perfect. So the lift on this 227 is pretty decent. It's probably close to 3/4 of an inch. And you know, my first cylinder arm machine was actually a 227, just a plain 227, no reverse, no fancy features. But I really like the capacity of these machines, and you put a KineDyne Servo on there and it just gives you everything you want. Very slow, just like a speed reducer. And when you look at the torque numbers between a typical 550 watt brush style servo motor with a speed reducer, this one has about the same torque. This one's rated at 7.9 Newton meters, so just really about the same torque as a 550 watt motor with a speed reducer, so plenty slow and tons of punching power. Let's just double this up and see what kind of capacity we can get. And one thing you'll notice is that needle bar doesn't stutter as it's punching through all this thick leather. No problem at all with that KineDyne motor. So that's about 4 layers of 5 or 6 ounce leather, and that's really maxing out the space under the presser feet here. So if it can sew that without any hesitation, that's a great sign. So this is just going to be a great setup for me. Anything that's a little bit odd size or maybe cylindrical objects will be perfect for this cylinder arm. I'll drop the speed down to 50, which is the minimum on this motor, and I'll completely punch it with the pedal, and that's it. That's as fast as you'll go. So it's a wonderful beginner mode, or if you're doing some really detailed leather work, you know the machine's not going to run away on you. I just love that slow speed control. And it'll always stop in that needle down position the way I have it set, and heel tap to bring up the needle and release the threads. Nice. This sewing machine with these particular accessories has really become a favorite for me in the shop. The head is a 227 R2 from Consew, and that's great if you need a cylinder arm. And this leg set from Prizzi Sewing is just incredible because it's a double T leg set, so it's a little sturdier than most. Plus it comes with those locking casters that already has that drop treadle bar, so no modifications needed. You'll instantly have a nice mobile workstation there. And plus you got the KineDyne HM-750SL motor, 750 watts or a full horsepower there. I'll link up to all these products in the description box if you want to check them out yourself.